So yes, thank you once again to you all for joining. Just a quick reminder that if you have any questions or comments towards Kamal during the webinar, you can write them in the comments section on Facebook page, and all the questions will be addressed after Kamal's presentation at the end of the webinar. So before we start with Kamal, I would like to briefly introduce you to iTrain and Lead Academy, both organizers who are organizing today's webinar. And yes, quick note to all who are attending today's webinar, you are very much invited to join also Kama's Mindfulness Masterclass, about which she will tell more about during the webinar. So at the end of August, we will be having a masterclass where all the tools that you will hear about today, they will be taught to you more in depth. So you can sign up today and read more information if you follow the bit.ly link. So it's bit.ly/itrain2608. And as a thank you to all who have joined today, we're offering you a 10% discount. So once you go to the Eventbrite page, you can enter this discount code and you will receive a 10% discount to get the tickets. So yes, thank you all for joining. And so yes, now briefly about iTrain and Lead Academy. So first of all, about iTrain. At iTrain, we're supporting digital transformation in Asia, and we are the pioneers and leaders in tech learning. And at iTrain, we believe in two core principles: the power of technology to shape the future and help us build a better world, and that love of learning is the source of human ingenuity and well-being. And our goal, which is backed by government and academia, is to fast-track Asian businesses with the latest technology applications and know-how. And so about Lead Academy. Lead Academy is an entrepreneurship education who offers workshops and courses both online and offline. And they have the tools and resources which are collaborative, intuitive, business innovation and mentorship tools. And also Lead Academy organizes events and community events that include talks, discussions, support networks, and thought leadership. So Lead Academy is a digital entrepreneurship academy established in 2019, and they offer online courses on entrepreneurship taught by experts and digital innovation tools for startups and educators. And also Lead Academy is a mentoring platform to track KPIs and access 50+ mentors. And Lead Academy has accelerated over 500 startups through their signature Office Startups program. And yes, Lead Academy is also part of iTrain Asia and 1337 Group. And about the courses that iTrain Group offers we are offering courses in mobile development, blockchain, data science, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, fintech, digital marketing, and cybersecurity. So all the skills that are very necessary for you to survive in this very hectic time that we are living in, where digital transformation and industry revolution 4.0 is taking all the businesses over. So everybody has to keep up and stay relevant to keep surviving. And what I want to mention is that most of the courses are also HRDF claimable. So do not miss the chance to approach your employer and tell him about iTrain and the courses that we are offering. And in the comments section, you can also find the link to our website. So it's itrain.com.mi, where you can learn more about the courses and what is taught in the courses. And as you can see, we've been helping and empowering businesses across many strategic sectors that are both in finance, technology, industry, and manufacturing. And yes, so at iTrain, we are teaching the future. And a kind reminder that all of you who have joined, yes, I will quickly go back to the first slide. So all of you who have joined today, you're more than welcome to join also Coma's Masterclass, to which you have the 10% discount. And if you want to have the presentation and the recording of today's webinar, you will have to fill out the feedback form that you can find in the comment section. That is bit.ly/iTrainWebinar. So once you fill out the feedback form, you will gain access to the recordings and the presentations. So that is it from my side today. And I'm going to give the floor now to Koma.
Thank you guys again for having me here. Thank you, Liz. And thank you, Nick, for working out all the technical difficulties and everything. It's been a real pleasure to work with you both. And I'm really excited. Thank you to everybody who is here on the webinar. Thank you guys for showing up and for coming to listen to me speak about mindfulness, meditation. And it's something that's very important to me and something that has really had a profound effect on my life. And any chance that I can get to talk about meditation, I'm more than happy to always talk about it. And one of the things that I have actually really taken a great pride in doing is actually to make mindfulness easy. Make meditation easy. And I'll explain the difference between meditation and mindfulness because you probably have heard both words thrown around. So I'll explain that to you shortly. But I remember when I first started learning how to meditate, I found it really difficult to do so. And something clicked, and I'll go a little bit more into detail of that. But basically, I have twin boys that are 7 years old, and shortly after they were born, I experienced postnatal depression, and it was at the time a very difficult part of my life. But it's now what I see as a blessing because having gone down that difficult path then led me into getting into a deeper awareness of what meditation is and getting into a deeper practice as well. Now, meditation is something that I've known for a really long time because my mom has actually been meditating for as long as I can remember. And she taught me how to meditate. But it wasn't until I really needed it in my life, which is, once I became a mother, that it really became something that a valuable tool that I was able to access. And for me, the most important thing about meditation is actually the space that it gives you between your emotional trigger and your response. So we'll go through a little bit more of that. And I'm just really excited to kind of break it down to you guys and hopefully make it something that you guys will also be able to easily digest. So Liz, we'll go on to the next slide. All right. Okay. So as we begin, I want you to imagine a scenario. It's 10 p.m. You're at home and you receive a message from your work colleague. And it's a work colleague that you don't necessarily have a lot in common with, and you may not even, this is a person that you probably wouldn't be having lunch with, but you work together, so you have a very professional sort of civil relationship with, but you do notice some tensions here and there. So you notice that the tone of the email is a little off, and your palms start to sweat, your shoulders start to tighten, and you unlock your phone and you proceed to read the message. And you kind of like, you start to get a little angry inside, and you're thinking, well, why is this person talking to me this way? It's not my fault that the go live didn't happen, or whatever it might be, whatever the situation was, right? So you go ahead and reply to that message. And after you're done, you realize your heart's beating a little faster, Your shoulders are tightening even more, and you realize that your shoulders have kind of come up and your neck is sort of buried down into your shoulders. But you just do a little neck roll and you fall asleep. The following morning, you notice that your upper back and your shoulders are really stiff, and there's a lot of body ache happening within your body, and there's a lot of thoughts racing around in your head regarding the message, the reply that you sent to your work colleague. And you start to get a little nervous because you're not sure if you sort of maybe may have overstepped some boundaries, or may have said something that you may later regret. You get ready for your day ahead, and you just push aside any of the nervous or guilty feelings you may have had. You don't share them with anybody. You just kind of bury it away and hope that it goes away. So if we can go to the next slide, Liz. So this is actually an example of being on autopilot mode. So when we talk about autopilot mode, there are certain traits that come up that sort of describe what it's like to be on autopilot mode. You'll notice that your attention is either in the past or in the future. You may be distracted. You're less aware of things that are happening. Somebody may be calling your name 3 or 4 or 5 times, and you're sort of off into another world, and you don't even hear somebody calling your name. And we also act based upon habit patterns and assumptions. So this is very common to how a lot of us react, because life is moving by. We don't necessarily have time to feel our emotions and figure them out. And the reality is, some of us may not even know how to feel our emotions. So, what do? We distract ourselves by burying ourselves in our work, into school, or we pack our social calendar back to back to back, so that we're just constantly being distracted, so that we're not reminded of the way that we would have reacted to somebody. And these are habits that have been happening for many years. And in fact, I'm sure many of you must have heard when you were a kid, don't cry, don't get angry, don't get upset. So this is also a part of conditioning, and it's just that parents are not at that generation, they were not aware of the importance of expressing our emotions. So we are quite lucky and fortunate that we are in this generation where having an emotional awareness is there's so much more importance placed upon this. So in today's workshop, I'm actually going to guide you in getting off autopilot mode and moving into awareness. Self-awareness is actually the foundation of mindfulness meditation. And the difference between mindfulness and meditation is that meditation you can see as a sort of an overall scheme. So this is the act of becoming aware, the act that we do to become aware. Mindfulness is one part of meditation. And from mindfulness, there's actually very many other criteria, other activities that you can do that would not necessarily be considered meditation, but considered mindfulness. So today we're going to be experiencing 2 different mindfulness practices, mindfulness meditation practices, and I'll also share tips on how to make mindfulness a healthy habit that you can easily adopt into your current lifestyle. And we'll move on to the next slide. And I want you to look at these 2 pictures. If you look at these 2 pictures, you'll notice that one of them is bright, vivid, clear, while the other one is dark, blurry, and not so clear. This is a great analogy to what self-awareness is. Self-awareness is having a high resolution of oneself. So more than just knowing what your likes and dislikes are, having self-awareness is actually recognizing our own emotions. So the foundation of self-awareness is actually emotional awareness. And if we think a little bit more about, what are emotions? Emotions are simply a physiological sensation that occurs in our body as a result of an external or internal trigger. So if we go back to our original example, where we received the email from our work colleague at 10 p.m., the external trigger was actually the reading the tone of the email and noticing who that email came from. So the external emotional trigger, how that showed up in our body was in the form of sweaty palms, the tightness in our shoulders, and that is actually the emotion of anxiety showing up in our body. So the average physiological sensation of an emotion actually only lasts in the brain and the body for an average of 90 seconds. However, how do we continue to feel the emotion? So again, if we go back to that original example, the next morning we woke up and we could still feel the effects of that anxiety. Well, the reason for this is because our mind continues to play this scenario over and over again in our head. So then what ends up happening is we're actually triggering ourselves internally. So we're constantly experiencing that anxiety, even if the external trigger has occurred, we've felt the emotion, we then continue to experience that emotion internally by having that scenario play over and over again like a movie. Um, if we can continue on to the next, I want to talk a little bit more about emotions. This is one of my favorite slides. I've got a 2-year-old toddler right now, and this very much sums up how he is at the moment. But when we think about emotions, they're a lot like toddlers having a meltdown. And one of the things that, after now my third child, one of the things that I realized with toddlers having a temper tantrum is all they need is some acknowledgement in a positive way, right? So if we look at our emotions, it's the exact same thing. When we experience a negative emotion, all it needs is some acknowledgement. So, and when I talk about this, is it's acknowledgement from yourself. So think about it. I want to give you another way to look at it. I want you to think for a second about the last time that you expressed a feeling to someone or an emotion. So for example, um, you might go to your partner and you might say, honey, I'm feeling so stressed right now. I don't know how I can manage my workload. Every time I try to work, the kids keep coming in and bothering me, and they don't realize that if I have headphones in my ears that I'm actually working, and I'm really becoming really stressed out and kind of angry about it. So instead of acknowledging your emotion, your partner actually comes to you and says, oh, you know what? Everyone is experiencing this right now because everybody's working from home and all the kids are at home. So it's okay. You'll be okay. You'll figure it out. So is that really helping us? Is that really acknowledging our emotions? In reality, sometimes all we need is actually for someone to say, wow, that, yeah, that's really tough. That's a really challenging situation. And I can understand that you're feeling angry. It's completely warranted. I understand why you're feeling so stressed. That's it. So it's the same thing with ourselves. When we actually feel an emotion, if we could go back to that original example and say, I'm feeling really stressed. I don't know, I'm feeling really nervous about receiving this email. I feel like I may be in trouble or I may have done something wrong. If we acknowledge those feelings from the get go, then that's half the battle right there. The second part of it is managing that, and we'll go through that in a little bit. Um, there's one way to actually be able to acknowledge our emotions. Right now, we may be in a habit. It may be habitual where we suppress our emotions. We don't even recognize when they are actually coming up. So one way to do this is by practicing meditation. And there is a specific meditation called a body scan practice. Some of you who have meditated or are familiar with meditation may be familiar with body scan meditation. And one of the ways that we're gonna practice this in a minute, but one of the things that I love about meditation is these are all, I like to call them brain exercises because that's exactly what it is. So if we go on to the next slide, we're going to practice our first meditation practice together. And just, I'd like to invite everybody to just get into a meditative position, which all that means is just get into a comfortable position. Comfort is the key here. So I want you to, figure out what that means for you. So it may mean sitting on a chair with your feet flat on the ground, or sitting on a chair with your legs crossed, or it may mean laying down on the bed, having your back straight. The key thing with any meditation practice, or the key thing with the positioning, is you just want to make sure that your back is straight, and just make sure the front of your body is quite soft. So just pay attention to your shoulders, doing a quick sigh if you need to. And the body scan is allowing us to practice two skills. It's going to allow us to develop a higher resolution awareness of our emotions. And two, it's going to allow us to witness our emotions as a human experience in that particular moment. So instead of taking on the emotion as part of who we are, for example, by saying, I am angry, if we start to witness the emotions as a human experience, we can actually change our language and start to say, I'm feeling anger in my body, or I'm experiencing anger at this moment. So while we're going through this meditation, I will guide you through to notice any sensations throughout various points of your body. Some sensations may be pleasant or unpleasant, or they may be neutral. You may not feel anything. Whatever the case is for you, try to meet the body sensation or lack of sensation with an open mind and kindness to yourself. Okay? All right. So I'd like to invite everybody now to either close your eyes or just have a soft downward gaze, just a few feet in front of you. Okay. This is going to be, we'll be meditating for a few minutes here. Let's begin by being aware of our breath. Just noticing the inhale and the exhale. And now start with taking 3 deep breaths. Just taking a soft inhale in and a slow and steady exhale out. Now just allow your breath to take its natural course, breathing in gentle awareness to your breathing. Now let's begin by bringing your attention to the top of your head, noticing any sensations or lack of sensations. And bring your awareness down to your face, your forehead, the muscles around your eyes, cheeks, jaw, lips, tongue. Move your attention now to the front of your neck, and now to the back of your neck. There's no need to change your experience. The purpose is not to relax or release tension, but just to simply notice what is. Moving your attention to your shoulders, becoming aware of your upper arms, your lower arms, and your hands. What sensations do you notice? You may notice heat or cold. How about the weight? Perhaps feeling your hands as they rest on your legs. Any moisture or dryness in the hands. Any tingling or pulsing sensation. Bringing your attention to your upper back and down to your lower back. Now to the front of your body, your chest and stomach. Noticing sensations of the breath, the rise and fall of your stomach, the beating of your heart, or anything else that may be there. Sensing through the lower part of your body. Notice your hips and your buttocks. Feeling your body the bottom part of your body as it rests on the chair or on the floor. Now moving through one leg at a time. Through your thighs, knees, shins, calves, ankles, the tops of your feet, and the bottoms of your feet. All the way down to your toes. And now, giving that same quality of attention to the other leg. Going down from your thighs, your knees, the shins, calves, ankles, tops of your feet, bottoms of your feet, and your toes. Let's explore what happens when we make a slight physical movement. Bringing your attention back to your face, try raising the edges of your mouth slightly, resulting in a half smile. Notice any changes in how you feel. If you'd like, bring to mind someone that you care about and imagine them happy and smiling right back at you. What do you experience? If feelings of satisfaction or happiness arise, notice where in your body these feelings actually manifest. Now bringing your attention back to your breath, breathing in and out. Just noticing the gentleness of your breath. And just settle the mind right there. Noticing what it's like to be breathing, sitting on a chair, just being curious, open, and noticing. Whenever you're ready, I'd like to invite you to gently open your eyes and return your attention to this room. All right. Now I'm just going to, Liz, I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. There we go. Now, I'd like for you, can everybody see my screen? All right, there we go. Yes, it's there. Okay. If you can, just for a few minutes, if you can just go to this website, menti.com, that's MENTI.com. Put it in here. And just type in the code at the top. And I'd like you to just use one word to describe how you're feeling at this moment. All right, getting a few entries in. All right. All right. So we can see that there's a myriad of different feelings that we're getting across the board. Oftentimes, when we meditate, a lot of these things, such as somebody's typed in a migraine or worry. Uh, it's not quite. We haven't been raised in a society or in a culture where we are free to experience negative feelings. So often, what ends up happening is we just brush those feelings aside. We may know that we're feeling a bit depressed or feeling a bit sluggish, but how often is it that we actually share that with someone else? And this is exactly what meditation is meant to do. It brings up these feelings. And the second part of this is actually being able to manage these feelings. We won't have time to get through that today, as if this is sort of a intro to self-awareness. But in the masterclass, we talk more about how to go through and manage these feelings. Though I do have a short exercise that we'll be able to do to experience. All right. Thank you for those that have input your answers. I'm going to just stop this, and then we'll go back to the slides. So Liz, if you can go ahead and bring up the slides again. All right. And we can go on to the next slide. So when we go back to meditation, there are actually two ways that we can practice. Um, and that is actually through an integrated approach and a dedicated approach. And you can see, as depicted on this slide, the dedicated approach, depicted as a dumbbell. It's as if we are actually going to the gym and working out our brain muscle. So in this case, a dedicated mindfulness practice is actually taking time out of our day and sitting on the floor, on a cushion, or on a chair, or even on your bed, or even laying down on your bed and practicing for 1 minute, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it is. The other way to practice mindfulness is through an integrated approach. And an integrated practice is actually a quick or a micro practice that is actually woven through your day. So, for example, if you're walking from your desk to get a glass of water, taking 3 deep breaths as you walk, maybe even syncing up those breaths with your steps, that would be an example of an integrated approach. So think about all the automatic things that we do in our day-to-day life. Brushing our teeth, taking a shower, walking to our car or the train. Oftentimes, our body is doing this automatic activity that we've done hundreds of thousands of times before, but our mind is thinking about other things. So it may be thinking about our checklist of to-do list of what we have to do that day or what we're going to have for lunch. But by bringing in an integrated approach to mindfulness throughout our day, we can actually bring it into these everyday automatic activities. And what we're doing when we practice in this integrated approach, that's where we're actually breaking down mindfulness to a simple practice, breaking it down into what I like to call bite-sized mindfulness. It's as if you were having 5 to 6 meals a day. So instead of having 5 to 6 small meals a day, you can now have 5 to 6 integrated mindfulness practices sprinkled throughout your day. The easiest way to start an integrated practice is by taking 3 conscious deep breaths before starting any new movement, or walking from one room to another, or changing from one task to another. So, the idea behind the integrated and dedicated practice is to increase the frequency and decrease the time spent per session. So, what I usually do when I get my clients, my private clients, to adopt meditation as a habit is I ask them to start with 1 minute dedicated practice in the morning. And I ask them to have 4 integrated practices throughout their day, and then a 1 minute dedicated practice in their evening. The reason for this is if we set out to do something that's easy and that we know that we can accomplish, we feel good about ourselves. And when we feel good about ourselves, we're more motivated to practice the thing that makes us feel good. And to really start to see a shift in ourselves as a result of meditation, consistency is key. So, daily practice and making it a habit. If we can go on to the next slide, Liz. So, I want to give you a micro practice now. This is called the head, body, and heart check in. So we're actually going to do this with 3 breaths. So as you can imagine, the 3 breaths, with the 3 breaths, we're going to be checking in with the head, the body, and the heart. Now, these are the three regions in our bodies that have the most neurons. And the reason this is important is when we stop and check in on these three areas, over time, we start to pay attention to sensations we may be feeling in these three regions. When we consciously put our attention on these sensations, we have the opportunity to actually improve neuron connectivity, which increases our neuroplasticity or expansion in our brain. 40 years ago, scientists didn't think that the brain could change. In fact, they thought that the brain that we were born with was, set with a certain number of brain cells, and as we continue to age, we start to lose brain cells as we go along. However, new scientific research indicates that we actually have the potential to grow more brain cells, and practicing mindfulness, a brain exercise, is one way of doing this. So the quick integrated practice can be useful before presentations or important conversations. Any time that you need to quickly check in and discern what kind of mental or emotional state you're in and how to best proceed. So the way that we're going to do this is you can be sitting in any position. Again, this is just a very quick micro practice. But we're going to take I want you to take 3 deep breaths at your own pace. And each breath is a reminder to scan that particular area of the body. So the first will be our head. So we're going to just take a deep breath in and just think about what thoughts are present. Second breath, checking in with the body. What physical sensations or emotions are present? And now taking a third deep breath in and checking in with the heart, which actually signifies our values and our intentions. What's the most important thing right now? How do I hope to show up in this next moment? And moving on to the last slide, or the next to last slide. So now that we've experienced the body scan meditation, we've experienced a integrated practice of checking in with 3 different areas of our body. It's quite natural that we act out to go do something, and we want to know how we are progressing. We want to know that we're doing something for a purpose. We're doing something to get somewhere. So the ironic thing is that the act of meditating is actually a non-doing. When we are dedicating ourselves to a meditation practice and we are sitting and practicing our 1 minute, 2 minutes, however many minutes you want to dedicate to this practice, the goal is actually for you to just be. Simply be. It's not often in our life that we are given the opportunity to let our body rest in silence and to consciously be there. Of course, when we're sleeping, our body is still, but we're not necessarily conscious. So doing this in a conscious approach. Now, saying that, as I mentioned, it is natural to make sure that we are progressing with this. So I created just a list of things which will tell you These are, I like to call them benchmark experiences. So it's what I like about this is knowing this actually motivates us to actually keep practicing. So one of the first things that you'll notice right off the bat is that you'll notice that it'll be easier to fall asleep. So once you start your meditation practice, you'll notice that you'll be able to fall asleep a lot easier, especially if you meditate just before bed. You'll also start to crave meditation. Once you've been doing it for 7 to 10 days in a row, you'll start to notice that you'll start to miss it, and you'll want to meditate more. You'll also notice sensations in the body when you're in stressful situations. So you'll notice that your chest will start to tighten. You'll start to notice the sweaty palms and the rapid heartbeat, the shallow breathing. You'll notice that your senses are more enhanced. You'll begin to see more clearly. You'll be able to hear more clearly. And you may even start to notice that your taste buds will be more heightened. So you'll be able to taste your food a lot easier as well. You'll notice that your relationships will begin to improve. You won't be as agitated by people. You'll feel less bound to your habits. You'll start to realize that you can actually change the habits. And you'll start to feel more curious and less judgmental. And after a while, you'll also realize that you'll have this ability to fully concentrate on tasks, even when there's background noise. As a mother to 3 children, I can completely attest to this last benchmark experience of being able to fully concentrate on tasks, even in my particular situation of having 3 boys in the background. So if anything, if there's any parents in the house, that in itself, especially considering the circumstances we are all in, that is for me the most important benchmark experience. All right, we're going to move on to the last slide. And as we come to a close, I wanted to leave you guys with a quote. This quote comes from Viktor Frankl, who was a psychiatrist and a Holocaust survivor. And while he was in the concentration camps, he actually based his observations. He wrote a book called the Man's Search for Meaning. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's the name of the book, Man's Search for Meaning. And his book is basically based on his observations of people around him in the concentration camps. And he realized one thing, that between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. Establishing a consistent mindfulness practice can give you just that. You create your own space between the emotional trigger and your reaction. It really is that simple. I hope that today's session has given you an easier understanding of how to integrate mindfulness in your life. And moving on to the last slide, I'd like to invite you to connect with me on any of these platforms. If you'd like to stay in touch, feel free to reach out to me through Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram. And a also, I do have some meditations that I have uploaded onto Insight Timer. For those of you that may not know, Insight Timer is actually a meditation app with hundreds of thousands of meditations, which have been uploaded by teachers from across the world. And it's a great tool to use. And if there's any parents, there's also a kids section in there as well, where you can um, access kids meditations as well. A sincere thank you to all of you for showing up today. You've made the biggest step, the most important step in your life in understanding what meditation is and arriving and practicing here with me. I'm wishing you all a wonderful day and weekend ahead. And again, a sincere thank you to the iTrain team, Liz, Nick, and everybody else that's there. Really appreciate having me here. And thank you so much. And Liz, I'll now hand it over to you.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Koma, for the presentation. And if anybody has questions to Koma, you can write them in the comment section. And we have a few minutes if you want to wait and receive the responses. But yes, a kind reminder that to get the recording, you can fill out the feedback form. And let me just quickly add, again, the feedback form. So yeah, just to add it in the comments section, you can find it. And yes, Koma, you wanted to say something?
Sure, yeah. I was just going to say, while we're waiting, I just wanted to tell people a little bit about the masterclass as well.
Yeah.
So in this course, it's very much about self-awareness and self-management. So we have had a teaser about what self-awareness is, but in the masterclass, the 2-day masterclass, we'll be going deeper into exactly what self-awareness is. And there's about 8 meditations that are sprinkled in throughout the 2-day masterclass as well, which will be recorded. So you'll actually be able to access those meditations as well. And you'll also be understanding and sort of getting a better idea of how you can implement meditation into your lifestyle, into your life as it is. And you'll also be able to, when it comes to self-management, start to understand what it is, what can we do, what specific meditation practices are out there to help us to manage our emotions. And we'll be doing some extra things in there in terms of helping us to really cement meditation into our life. So we'll be doing some fun activities in this 2-day masterclass. So I really hope you join. And if you have any questions about it, feel free to contact me. And that's it. But I look forward to having you guys join.
Yes, and we have 2 questions. So the first question is, what is the average time of meditation needed for anyone who has limited time in their daily life?
Very good question. So there is actually no average time. I mean, this is the basis of meditation is actually to make this a consistent habit. So it's you want to make it sticky, and so don't put so much emphasis on the time. Put more emphasis on making it something that is achievable, that you can do every day. So even a 1-minute meditation every day will be effective as long as you do it every single day. Now, there may be a point in time where you've been doing the 1-minute meditation for 10 days and you're like, okay, I need something more. You'll know within yourself that, okay, let me try to increase it a bit more. And one of the things I say is increase it by, do slow increases. So don't go from 1 minute to 5 minutes, but maybe you want to go from 1 minute to 3 minutes or 2 minutes, and then slowly increase your time from there. But the importance should actually be placed on the consistency and making it a daily habit. So,
Thank
all
you. And the second question is, what is the difference between emotion and feeling?
right. Very good question, Aruna. Um, and emotions and feelings are quite similar. If I had to really separate them, a feeling, I guess you could say, is actually that physical sensation that you feel in your body. So feeling is very much in your body, whereas the emotion is actually processed in your brain. So, but the two are very much interconnected, because that physical sensation that we feel in our body is actually the emotion showing up in our body. So, hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much, Koma. So
Okay.
there have been no more questions coming in, but if anybody has questions that they want to send in privately, Koma shared previously her details, but you can also contact iTrain to get more information. And yes, so thank you all for joining.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, thank you all, and have a great day.